Welcome to the Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, with me riding shotgun, it's my main man, Reggie. What is going on today, Reg?
What up? What up, Ken? How you doing, brother?
It is full time, full season, Burgundy and Gold here. But we are a couple days into free agency for the 2025 season. And I just want to get you on, talk to the listeners about our evaluation of what we've done so far in the off season. Right, it's just started out, but I want to have a talk with you and see what you were thinking about it. Everything good with you, man?
Yeah, everything's good, man. To your point, it's free agency. Spring is here. My allergies have let me know that it is springtime,
Yeah.
and the weather's been a little crazy. It's cold one day and it's hot the next day, so it's kind of been a little bit crazy weather here, man. But free agency is a good time of year for football fans. It's kind of like Christmas to some degree. I think we get excited probably a little bit more for free agency than we do the draft. But it's just one more step to the beginning of the new year, man. And, we've been looking forward to free agency and the draft since last year. We talked about how we finished the season, and with the new front office coming in and having a year under their belt to assess the team that they inherited. And we were going to be excited about this offseason and to see all the things and all the moves and all the signings and everything that would take place with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn at the helm. And here we are, man. Here we are.
Yeah. Washington came into free agency with, I think, the third most money, coming into the season with the third most money available under the caps. For spending on other teams' free agents, your free agents, any signing that you have. And typically, the more money you have, the more changes you see coming. And it also, where you sit, if you have more money, you think your team's going to get better, right? So Washington had a good season last year, got a good bit of money, got a decent amount of draft capital. You think, man, we're going to be better in 2025 season than 2024. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Free agency is potentially a letdown at this point.
Okay.
All
right.
While we've made some moves through trades, free agency, we have done almost nothing. And with all that money, we thought, man, we're going to get a stud linebacker, a stud defensive end, one of these big signings. And it hasn't happened so far. And as I look at different websites that list the top 100 free agents available, they're going away. They're going away real fast. And Washington, from a free agent signing, has not signed a single top 100 free agent that wasn't already theirs. So they re-signed Bobby Wagner. They re-signed Zach Ertz. Those are two names that were in the top 100 of the list, the one of the lists that I'm referencing. And then we also had two others that we didn't re-sign, De'Ami Brown and Jeremy Chin. And you can say whether we should or shouldn't have signed those, but we had four players in the top 100. We re-signed two and we let two walk away. Okay, so we still had the third most money, and we have not signed another single free agent in the top 100. No matter what else we've done, that's a surprise. If I just told you that right off the bat, you would be surprised. It doesn't mean we need to get the top 5, top 7, but you would think we would be getting, the 38th, the 52nd, the 62nd. But we've not been doing that. Adam Peters seems to be gone with the approach, at least this offseason, I'll say the last 4 or 5 months, with the trade scenario instead of free agency. At the end of last season, in November, so we're talking late in the season, we went and got Marshawn Lattimore. Then just before free agency started, we made a trade for Deebo Samuel. And then as free agency starts, doesn't matter whether it's during free agency or not, we made a trade for left tackle Tunsil from the Texans. And you think, three solid players. I like it, right? They're all getting paid a good bit of money. Actually, all of them are averaging $20 million each, right? Approximately $20 million each between the three of them. And that's fine on the surface. But when you look at the draft picks, and Adam Peters told us he wanted to build through the draft. And that's what he's been preaching through the draft. He preached it last year. He preached it this year coming into it. Not that they weren't going to be active in free agency, but that's been the talk the whole thing. Well, between the three people that I've mentioned, Lattimore, Deebo Samuel, and Tunsil, we have given up in 2025 not one, but 2 third-round picks, a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, a 7th-round pick. I'm not done. In 2026, we've given up a 2nd-round pick and a 4th pick. So from what somebody is telling me in Adam Peters, that I'm a draft guy, building through the draft and supplement through free agency, he's done completely the opposite. We've done, like I said, the first 3 rounds is 3 picks, 2 fourths, a 5th, and a 6th. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 draft picks this year and next year that we don't have. 8. That's more than an entire draft, right? If it's your own picks, you have 7. He's given away 8. Doesn't matter whether we got them from previous trades or whatever. We've given up 8 draft picks and $20 million a player for each of these.
Okay.
And picked up basically nobody, a bunch of average guys, right? A bunch of Jags through free agency right now. We picked up Kinlaw at tackle. You probably had to look up, if I didn't tell you, you probably had to look up at what team he played on before. Will Harris, you probably had to look up at what team he played for. Eddie Goldman, you might know him, but he's 31 years old, tackle. And Jonathan Jones, another 31-year-old cornerback. So what I'm being told of how we're going to build this team and be better next year is not what is being done currently at this moment. I know I laid a lot out there, and I'm going to turn it over to you for your initial reaction to what I'm laying out. And let me just go before I start there.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're better. I don't.
Okay.
On defense. Are we better right now? I mean, our biggest problem was defense last year. At this moment, are we any better on defense than we were last year? We gave up Jonathan Allen. Let him walk.
Well,
Jonathan Allen.
hang on.
Jeremy Chin is gone. Some other players that we haven't respond. What's that?
Give me a chance to respond. Hold on.
And
We'll get into.
And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Reggie and give you the soapbox here to get on and either join me on the frustration part, or you can talk me out of it.
Okay. Well, we'll circle back to whether or not we're better. Man, there was a lot to digest there. But let me start with their slogan, which is they build through the draft and supplement through free agency. And I think that is a model for most front office people when you inherit a bad team that you're trying to turn into a contender and eventual Super Bowl winner. There isn't anyone in the league or any football fan, any talking head that you see on TV, fan, or anyone in the building in DC that will tell you that what happened with Washington last year is not the norm. We drafted a guy and our team went from 4 wins to 12 wins. So to me, this tells me that going into last year's draft, that was the plan. But with the accelerated success that this team had and the phenomenal play that we received from the most important position in football, which is the quarterback position from Jayden Daniels, I think it accelerated, this process. So I think there has been a little bit of a pivot from building through the draft, supplementing through free agency, because the window for Jayden Daniels becoming a $100 million quarterback, the hourglass has already started. And so for you to try to draft and grow some players at some of our key positions in order to be that perennial playoff team every year, if you think about it, all of these guys are going to come due for contracts almost about the same time. So you can't just think about just today. You got to think about tomorrow. So do you try to win now before we get to Jayden Daniels' contract is due? Because all you need to do is look at a lot of teams out there, including the team that in our city here, the Dallas Cowboys. You struggle to pay people when your quarterback is due. Why do you think San Francisco is having a purge right now? Because they're having to pay Brock Purdy. And so now you have to cut or let people like Debo walk and some of the safeties and all of the key players that they had during their window. They're having to let go of some of these people. So I think that there's a little bit of a pivot by Adam Peters and the front office to say, okay, listen, I can try to draft a guy like Debo, or I can trade for Debo. I can try to draft the next franchise left tackle, or I can trade for a left tackle. So to me, that's just what I think is happening here. I think even this success even probably caught them by surprise. So we have to accelerate our build here. In terms of not signing all the big names in free agent, let's be clear. Adam Peters and that front office has been tight like Fort Knox. We never know what's coming out of that building nowadays since they've taken over. So anytime a big name player was tied to Washington, it was because the Adam Schefters of the world said that. There's no confirmation, but they said that. And it was easy to connect the dots to that, because if a particular high-priced free agent or a high-priced player wanted to be traded or was going to become a free agent, was on the streets, and it filled a position of need for Washington, it was easy to connect the dots because we had cap space. But that doesn't mean that that's the guy that they were interested in. So us as fans was saying we can go get that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy. When in reality, because we say we trust Adam Peters, right? At this point, he's not made a move that make us doubt him. So if we say we trust him and he didn't bring that plan, there may be a reason why he didn't do it. But let's also consider the fact that maybe it's kind of like you and I going through life, right? We have our budgeted of money, and maybe we were willing to pay a certain amount of dollars for said player, but maybe that guy took more money and went somewhere else. And it doesn't mean that we didn't try to get him. Just because we didn't sign him doesn't mean we didn't talk to his agent, didn't talk to the players, but he chose to take the money and go somewhere else. And we just said, hey, I'm going to tap out at this dollar amount, and someone else gave him another dollar amount. And with that being the case, that's more of, hey, we tried, we just didn't land the big fish. So the fact that they haven't doesn't necessarily tell me that they're not trying. Okay. And then to kind of wrap this up a little bit, we had the most free agents outside of Kansas City. We had the most free agents on our team, or meaning we had the least number of players under contract. So we're going to have to sign our own guys along with bringing in some guys. And you pointed out yourself, even with the 3 guys that we traded for, these guys are averaging $20 million. Well, that counts against all that cap money that everyone has been talking about. We got so much cap money. And if you just go with your average, and I know they're not all getting 20 million, but let's go with your average of 20 million. That's 60 million off of our cap. Now, you can make the argument, and I'll buy it, that Debo's money was an offset to John Allen money that when he was released. But that's still another $40 million that you got to count for. And then we got to then sign big free agents. And one last thing, let's be clear. Last offseason, these guys, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and those guys, signed people not on the first day of free agency, but on the second, third, and later on in the season that were all good players that came in and were key contributors on our team. I think we all agree we need to upgrade those things. But there are players that I think that are still out there that will feel a need for us. It doesn't have to be the top dollar free agent, the high price free agent, but we can still get good quality free agent players to still come in and be a part of this team. Now, I will tell you personally that after everything that I just said, I'm okay with it. But the one thing that I am a little surprised about is that the free agency, they didn't really attack the defensive side of the ball, because our problem wasn't offense, it was defense. And it was not only defense, but it was the ability to stop the run. Now, with that being said, though, they went out and got Eddie Goldman. Again, don't know who this guy is. He's on a 1-year deal. They went out and got Javon Kinlaw in free agency, the defensive tackle. And so right there in and of itself, we now have 4 interior defensive linemen between Newton and Payne to go with Goldman and Kinlaw. And I don't think they're done. And we still have picks. We still got our first, second, and third round pick this year. And whether that is they trade those and gather more picks in the early rounds, or they use them because this apparently is a deep draft for defensive linemen. So maybe their plan is to attack it in draft and supplement the veteran through leadership and experience through free agency like they've done. Maybe not the big names, but through the free agency like they did. So at the end of the day, I'm a little surprised that we wasn't as active, but I'm not as down on the lack of activity in free agency like a lot of people are.
I will say I hear what you're saying. I mean, and you said we have a first, second, and third round picks this year. We don't have any third round picks. We had 2 at one point, but we gave up 1 for Lattimore and 1 for Tunsil. Along with the
that's
other
right.
picks.
So we have a 4th now. Sorry.
Yeah, and so again, to your point, we have a window, but that window isn't just next year, right? I think as good as we did last year, with the talent that we had, I think we reached our ceiling.
Okay.
And so everybody performed as well as or better than what they could have. And so to me, I think we still have a lot of, for lack of a better term, rebuild. I not that we don't take advantage of, I mean, Debo Samuels for a 5th round pick is a bargain. You grab that. But I think with all the other picks that you have that you're giving up, I mean, and I'm just going to use Tunsil as an example. Excellent left tackle, he's not 25 years old either, right? And so you gave up 4 draft picks for him and the money. You know, what was wrong with giving a little bit more money for a free agent? Let's just say the guy out of Baltimore that was kind of one of the big. I'm just using him as an example, or one of the others. I know he re-signed. You're right. Before you say it, he re-signed with Baltimore. But whoever the next one was, right?
But let me say this.
Just take what's that?
Let me just say this.
Go ahead.
So supposedly, Stanley was their target, but he never hit free agency. And then after that, there was really no one else out there.
Okay.
So they made the next move, the next best move, which was to go get a guy who's universally around the league is considered top 5 left tackle in the league.
Right.
And let's be clear, they did give up the picks for his contract, but he has 2 years left on his contract. So technically, if this doesn't work out, they can get out. And tackles can play well within their mid-30s. He's 30. He's either just turned 31
and I don't
or
disagree. Again, we'll see how it plays out. If he's here for another, I'm just going to say 5 years, 4 to 5 years, then maybe everything is fine, right?
I think he will be.
But
I think we're going to look back on this trade, and we're going to be happy that we gave up those 4 picks for that particular player.
And again, I'm just going to throw the question out of whoever the best left tackle was out there. I didn't hear anybody breaking a 32 million, any kind of crazy left tackle price out there. So you didn't have to pay potentially that much more money. And I understand if that person wasn't even in the same category as Tunsil, that's their evaluation. But we gave up a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a 7th round pick for him. Oh, and $20 couple million a year for 2 years. So that's a big package for the guy. And
okay, but hang on.
Let
me just say this.
So go ahead.
Let me just say this. But everybody who taught sensible football, right? We're not talking about people that just overreact to things. We talked about 2 things, right? We had to build up the line. Okay.
Yep. Both lines.
Offensive line and defensive line.
Yep.
Okay. And at the very end of the season, we lose one of our players who they didn't account for having to have to worry about. And that was the major injury to Sam Cosmi, right guard.
Right.
So you now have to fill that hole because he's going to miss probably most of the season.
Yeah, at least half of the season, probably. Yeah.
Right. And then you talked about, even before he got hurt, we talked about how we needed to fortify the line. Okay. So by signing Laremy Tunsil, you kind of address 2 positions because we have a guy that I think most people felt comfortable with, Brandon Coleman, coming back as the starting left tackle, thinking he would improve over the year 1 as a rookie. But at the end of the day, you now have a guy who can be that cornerstone left tackle because he's probably going to play another 4 or 5 years. And now Brandon Coleman can either become your right guard, your left guard. He can become your right tackle, right? And who's to say they're not even done? They may sign another lineman. And then now you got and then when Cosmi come back, a guy like Wiley or Allegretti could be your swing. I mean, this filled 2 positions by signing the one guy. And if we truly believe that Adam Peters and those guys have a knack for finding people in the draft, including late rounds draft, then even with the picks they have this year and next year, they'll still find quality guys. And I say all of this because I feel like unless and until they start drafting guys that just can't play, or they make moves on guys because they're reaching for guys that can't play, I have no reason to doubt that they won't continue to find good quality players. I mean, John Baptiste was a 7th rounder, right? You got all these guys, right? Ben Sinnott could still be the guy that's going to improve. They're going to find some talented guys. And so they're talking about this draft being a draft for defense. And that may be where they're going with this, because we don't need a top 5 defense to go with the moves they're making on the offensive side of the ball. But man, you get that defense improved, because overall, I think we finished 13th defensively, but we were 30th against the run. 30th against the run. You improve the run defense. How much better not only is the defense, but how much better are we as a team? Because one thing we know with this season coming up, they're going to have to be a better run team, a run stopping team, based on the schedule alone. So I understand that we're not doing some of the things that I think a lot of us wanted them to have done, but I'm not going to say that these aren't good moves. You know, Olamide Zaccheaus, I didn't know who the hell that guy was. Noah Brown, he's a cast-off. Crowder, journeyman, right? Zach Ertz, that guy's got nothing left in the tank.
Hold on now. We re-signed him, so be careful what you say about Zach Ertz.
But I'm saying this was the narrative of things that we were hearing. The Commanders are doing nothing, man. They signed a bunch of guys off the street. They signed a bunch of old guys. But the people I just named all became major pieces to the success we had last year. And Noah Brown was signed I think right before the season started.
Yeah.
So my point being is, until the front office gives me reasons to start doubting their moves and the decisions that they're making, I'm going to go with they know something I don't. And if they're just not willing to spend all of their money just because they have it to chase the Josh Sweats of the world or the Joey Bosa's, everyone thought we'd get Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack just built a $50 million house in California. And maybe he decided, you know what? Instead of going all the way across the country to D.C., I'd rather take less money and stay and play for the Chargers on a one-year deal. Doesn't mean that Washington didn't offer him money, because supposedly we were in the runnings for Khalil Mack. So that's the part I'm getting at, is that sometimes the player has a say. And Khalil Mack may have just said, I want to stay in California and play for the Chargers. I don't want to go to D.C. Don't want to live on the East Coast. So doesn't mean they didn't try just because we haven't signed these guys. But I still believe that they can still find quality players for us, even as the free agency cools down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell, right? But I think we look at this team as being a young team, right? A young up and coming team that'll be around for a while. And that I think if you look at it through a microscope, you're going to realize that that's not the case, right? The two free agents that we re-signed was old man Bobby Wagner and old man Zach Ertz.
I understand, Ken, but there's a mix of veterans and there's a mix of youth here, and they are still going to draft players. But you got to keep in mind the players they got last year are still on the team. We drafted I don't have the number in front of me. Let's say we drafted 7 guys last year. At least 7 of them, 5 of them are still on the team, and they were contributors. So you still have some core players here, and they're going to draft this year. It's not like we don't have any draft picks. They're going to draft this year, and let's just say they hit on 3 of those picks. You still have youth that is still going to come up, because Zach Ertz will probably not be here next year.
Agreed.
Bobby Wagner will probably not be here next year.
50-50.
So you have guys that you drafted, and the guys they're going to draft this year that would take another step. So it's not like I understand a lot of the free agents we've gotten are kind of old, but what's also really good about this thing is a lot of players that people that are unhappy about, these guys are on one-year deals. So guess what? That money's going to come off the books, and you got more cap space. And now maybe you hit the free agency, because supposedly this wasn't a great free agent class. And maybe next year's free agent class is better, and now you still got money, because a lot of these contracts are going to come off the books, including Jonathan Jones, Eddie Goldman, Jeremy Nichols, Will Harris, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz. All these guys are on one-year deals.
And I'd like to interrupt you with that how are you going to replace Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, and other names that you have? Where's the best place to replace them with? Through the draft. But guess what? We have 8 less draft picks this year and next year to do that.
But we had a guy, was it Hampton? Right? Linebacker. He just got hurt. You still got Ben Sinnott. You mean to tell me? So
Let me know when these guys produce.
But sometimes, Ken, you play behind guys, right? I mean, I'm just simply saying, not everybody walks onto an NFL field and becomes Jake Daniels. Some
Agreed.
guys, it may be in their second or third year before it finally clicks for them. And that may be the case with Sinnott, right? That may be the case with Dominique Hampton. He didn't get I think he got hurt, so he didn't get a chance to really get on the field much. So thank God Bobby Wagner stayed healthy and Frankie Louvu stayed healthy. So I don't know. I'm just not willing to say that this has not been a success at this point.
Right, until it plays out, you don't know. But I think there's enough of a say one thing and do another thing scenario here that makes you kind of raise an eyebrow and go, what are we doing here? Because most fans would agree that, hey, a trade here or there that makes sense is fine, but we need to do this through the draft, right? Because then you have that guy for 4 or 5 years. Not only do you have him for 4 or 5 years, but he's also young, right? Not hasn't gone through year after year of NFL beatings.
Fair enough. Give me an example of one of the guys that you would have rather gotten through the draft and have for 4 or 5 years as opposed to the trade. Just give me one of them.
Meaning what? I mean, like you said,
because you're talking about instead of trading for these guys and giving away draft picks, your point is we could have drafted and had this player in our building for 4 or 5 years. He developed into this star player. He's in there for 4 or 5 years, and then we signed him to a big contract. So you're saying it would have been better to have done that than to make the trade. So give me one of those players that we traded for. Debo, Laramie Tunsil, Marshawn Lattimore. Which one would you rather say instead of trading for? I would have rather drafted his replacement.
I'm not going to pick one out, but what I will say is that you gave Adam Peters so much credit last year for being able to hit in the draft. Well, now he had 8 potential hits to have a replacement for Lattimore, Samuel, or Tunsil, right? He might have been able to get somebody else in the second, third, fourth, another third, another fourth, a couple sixth and fifth and seventh. So there's 8 opportunities for basically a whole draft year that he drafted away that he could have hit on 3 or 4, to your point. And now he's not going to have that opportunity to.
He might though. We don't have the luxury to might hit on certain guys, right? We have a window here. We have a finite window here.
Hold on. If you have, I got to interrupt you. If you have a high caliber general manager, you should be hitting on 3 or 4, not necessarily stars, but you should be hitting on solid 3 or 4. If you've got 8, I'm going to use 8 because that's what we gave away.
Okay, that's fair. But what you're calling success in the league is what? Guys that become your quality starters or guys become all pro? Because you can still hit on a guy and he be a routine starter for you year after year. And then within that draft, you may have a guy becomes an all pro, one of the best at his position. But just because the guy doesn't become all pro or perennial Pro Bowl, it doesn't mean he's not a good player. Doesn't mean that you didn't hit on him in the draft. The guy that is contributing on the field every year.
You're making my argument for me.
No, I'm not. Because you're saying that he could have hit on those guys, and he did. But that doesn't mean that you can't go get a Pro Bowl, perennial All Pro upgrade at a left tackle. Doesn't mean you can't upgrade positions just because the guy you drafted is a solid player on your team. Because you need those guys. Everybody at every position is not going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. You still need
100%.
guys that are going to contribute. So the fact that they drafted last year and some of these guys thus far doesn't seem like they're on the field to be Pro Bowl players doesn't mean they're not going to be quality players for the team down the road. But Dominique Hampton may never live up to Bobby Wagner. Ben Sinnott may never live up to be Zach Ertz. But that doesn't mean that he still can't be Chris Cooley. Doesn't mean he can't be like Jordan Reed. Those guys didn't make Pro Bowls, but they were damn good players for us.
And if
So
it comes that, then that's another thing. Like I said, individually, I think the trade for Lattimore, Debo, and Tunsil are not necessarily bad trades. When I put them all three together at one time, and we realize in 1 year, 1 season, that we just gave up 8 draft picks when I think we still need to build for the future. It
I
it
think they
makes
will.
it's going to hurt us building for the future with the 8 draft picks, because when you do that, what does it do? It makes you rely more so on free agency next year, right? It just does, because you don't have the draft picks. When you have holes to fill, when you don't have draft picks, there's no other way to fill it other than with free
And
agency.
I will give you this. I will give you the fact that we lost those picks in the trade gives you less room for error, that you make sure you have to hit on the picks you got. You make it sound like we got no picks this year, next year. It just means that they don't have the luxury to miss on some of these guys. They got to really hit on the guys they're going to draft, because they did give up 8 picks. There's no way I can make excuse for that. But what I will tell you, the 8 picks they gave up for those 3 guys, we all said teams are going to be coming for us. Our schedule is going to be harder. We're going to play better team. We need to upgrade. Can they just gave Jaden another weapon, Debo? They just gave him another receiver opposite of Terry, Debo. We needed corner help, right? There wasn't any big corners in free agency. Supposedly that's why they traded for Marshawn last year. And you look at the free agency, where's all the big corners going, right? So we got a corner. He's got to play better, but we got a corner. And then you said the offensive line. You're not going to find the caliber of a Debo, Laramie Tunsil, and a Marshawn Lattimore in this year's draft or even next year's draft to play within the next 3-4 years. The odds are very slim. So they made some key upgrades to some key positions for us to try to win now. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to draft guys to try to win this thing down the road when you move on from if you don't re-sign Debo or you release or move on from Marshawn Lattimore. I still think they can still find guys. It will be fine, man.
And look, I don't think all of a sudden we're going to be a basement dwelling team by any means. But again, you don't have you lost picks. So if anything, that makes it that much more important that Adam Peters and staff, they got to hit on the picks, right? You can't get a second round pick that barely plays or is in a filler. You need, ideally you would love to find a 6th round pick that is a surprise and starts. Doesn't have to be an all-star, but can start. And I know that's not common. But when you're making free agent moves and giving up draft picks like that, you got to hit on those 5th, 6th, 7th round picks once in a while. Not every single one, but here and there, you got to find starters in the 5th, 6th round. One every other year.
Okay.
And
who's to say that they haven't found that guy?
I'm just saying because you're giving up draft picks and you have less of them, your margin for error in the draft becomes less, right?
I don't disagree. But let me give you two examples. We had a lot of draft picks during the Ron Rivera era, and shit, half of them are gone. So it's not that you have the picks; it's who you pick with the pick,
without a doubt.
Okay. So at this point, they've not made a whole lot of bad picks. The jury's still out. So let me be clear. I'm not saying that they're not. And listen, they're going to mess up at some point. But right now, the jury's still out on the picks they did make.
Correct.
Okay. But just because you have a ton of picks doesn't mean you make the right choice. And then let's look at a team like, was it the Rams? The Rams for years, within recent memory here, traded away all their draft picks because they were trading them to teams to get top free agents, the Jalen Ramseys of the world, right? The Von Millers. And look how it worked out. So They were a team that built their team, and they didn't even use their first 2 or 3 rounds of draft picks. Right?
And because they were hitting on the later rounds. You know, who's the wide receiver there now?
These guys
and Cooper Kupp. What's that?
Okay. So who's to say that we're not hitting on our second round pick? I mean, our late round.
I didn't say we're not going to. I'm just saying you have to hit on those.
I don't disagree. And at this point, they've not proven to me that they don't draft well. This is on their second. They've only had 1 draft, bro.
Oh, I know. I understand. I'm saying there's just that much more emphasis on
100%.
if you only have 4 picks, man, you need to hit on 3 out of 4. Again, doesn't need to be superstars. It'd be great if one of them ends up being a stud, but the less picks you have, the more it is important that they contribute quickly to the team.
I don't disagree. You have less room for error. 100% agreed.
But again, I'm bringing this up. A lot of other people are talking about it. I mean, if it sounds like I'm beating up the Adam Peters, I'm just questioning, right? Because what they said and what they are doing is not in sync. And I understand there's time for adjustments and everything. I personally don't think that we are at the point of giving up the future for 2025, right? We're not right on the, personally, I don't think we're on the cusp of being a true Super Bowl contender. We should make the playoffs next year. I'll be surprised if we're not in the running. You never know, injuries and things like that. But I don't think we are there. And to get there, normally you build through the draft to get a handful of young players. They've got a couple of years, 2 or 3 years experience, and then you go all in right before the last year or 2 of your quarterback before you sign. You don't do it second year. Hey, Jaden has accelerated that as well as he performed. So we'll see how this goes. This is new territory for Washington and for Washington fans. So there's a lot to chew on and absorb here.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this real quick, and then we'll do this, and then we'll talk about are we better, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Just give me a quick yes or no. If given where we are and where we're trying to build this team to get better, would you be in or out on some of these players?
Okay.
Stephon Diggs.
Currently, right now, I know what his cost is going to be, so probably not.
You don't know. You don't know what the market is going to be for any of these guys, right? They think the market is out there and it may not be, but just yes or no. Stephon Diggs. No. No.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to be realistic, right? There could be a surprise of somebody cuts you some kind of deal, but on what I anticipate the market to be, not that he's necessarily the highest up there, but he's going to be 20 plus.
Keenan Allen.
No.
Mari Cooper.
No.
Tyler Lockett.
No, I think a wide receiver and anybody at wide receiver that you're paying more than 10 million on, I'm not interested. And I think all those, maybe not. I think all those guys are 10 million plus.
Are you serious? Listen, man. Okay. I don't want to get sidetracked here, but listen to what you're saying, bro. We are trying to win a Super Bowl here, and you want to go bargain basement shopping for a third wide receiver?
No. I'm not trying to bargain basement. I'm trying to say right now we have Terry and we have Debo.
What if Terry gets hurt? What if Terry gets hurt? He got to miss 4 games, 5 games, or even he's out. You're talking about.
So why not sign 2 or 3 of the wide receivers that you just mentioned?
But you said don't even sign them because they're all going to cost you more than $10 million. But you're like, oh no, I'm out on those guys.
I'm out that I'm paying a third wide receiver $10 million plus.
You have the money. You got the money. You got to have depth. You got to have a quality depth, and you got the money to do it. It's not going to. I'm shocked to hear you say this, but we got to get out of shopping in the basement.
No. Let me clarify. Our problem in 2024 was not offense. Where have we spent our money and our draft capital has been on Deebo Samuel and Tunsil.
Fair enough.
Are we better on offense right now than we were at the end of last year? Yes. If you're going to tell me that our approach is going to be just outscore them, we don't care. We are just going to outscore you. Then okay, then go that route. But our need at this moment is not wide receiver.
I'm not saying it's a need, but if you get these guys on a good, friendly 1-year deal, because look, we were very fortunate last year that we wasn't a team hit with a lot of injuries.
What does 1 year
Okay,
do for us?
you
We're not a Super Bowl
can't.
contender next year.
They're
This
still
coming
going to
year.
build. They're still going to build through the draft, Ken. But you still have to supplement. You can still bring these guys on. We only had 2 receivers. Prior to Debo, we had 2 receivers on the contract.
What I'd rather spend that money on is let me get a better linebacker. Let me get a better safety. Let me get somebody better on defense that is, I'll say 28 and younger, and sign them for 3 years or 4 years. So I have them for this.
Those guys aren't on the street, Ken, or they're already gone. But let's go. Let's move on. Von Miller.
Man, he's 34, 35 years old. Maybe for a 1-year contract, considering what we have or don't have on defense.
Matthew Judon.
Nah, lukewarm on it. I'm being honest. Lukewarm.
All right. DeMarcus Lawrence was on the list, but he's gone. Zadarius Smith.
Lukewarm.
Okay. Stephon Gilmore. Cornerback.
Yeah. How old is he now?
I don't know. He's old.
He's up there in years. I'm probably maybe if you're on defense, I have a little bit more leeway. I'll be honest, right?
And Justin Simmons, safety.
Where'd he play? I'm drawing a blank on him.
I think he was in Denver, I think.
I can't comment. I'm drawing a blank on him, to be honest with you.
But these are all big names out there, right? These guys are all available and probably for a good price. These are all big. Most of these are big name players that still are looking for a home, that didn't sign on the first day or two of free agency. So they're going to be willing to get team friendly deals, and yet you're still out on them, right? And these guys can still help you. This is where the Zach Ertz and the Bobby Wagners were. And yet you guys are still, not you guys, but you're like, nah. But these guys can help you where you still develop the young players that we're going to draft. So it is a process. And I don't,
again, the wide receiver the
concept is the same.
I'll back up. The wide receivers that we had last year in 2024, a handful of no names, and we still were one of the top offenses out there.
But you said they outperformed, Ken. They played above out of their head, and you said that you can't expect them to do that again. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen are better than any of those guys you just named. They would be an upgrade over Oz, Dommy Brown, what's the other Brown kid? These guys are better than all those guys.
And that's why we went and got Debo, right? Debo is going to take look, those guys did not take pressure, minimal. They didn't take very much pressure off of Terry. Debo is talented enough. I mean, I don't know that he is right now, but he was a number one number 1 receiver. So you have a 1 and either an extremely strong 2 or another weak 1, however you want to look at it. So your third wide receiver, to me, doesn't need to be, you don't need to pay the ultimate big prices. I'll use Noah Brown as an example. Noah Brown can come in here at a reasonable rate and have a big performance, considering you got Debo out there and Terry out there. It's going to make it easier for him. He is going to, whatever wide receiver the third wide receiver is on this team, if they are not in a zone coverage, you are going to be man to man. And if you've got the, who's to say it's not Luke, right? I just don't think that third wide receiver is worth 10, 12, 14, 18 million dollars that these guys are going to be. Not, I just don't.
Well, it's funny how Philadelphia didn't perform well when they lost their receiver. And so Debo tends to get injured. We've been lucky with Terry. and anything can happen, man. And you're talking about guys on a team 1-year friendly deal that can keep this train rolling in case somebody goes down. You're like, I'm out on them. I don't understand it, but everybody's got an opinion, man. I just don't understand it.
I'll be surprised when one of them signs at a lower rate, right? If all of a sudden one of those
and then you're gonna be like, man, if we could have signed him for that,
hey, kick the tires.
You didn't want to sign him.
Kick the tires. Go ahead. I mean, like I said, are you getting one of them at $8 million? Sign them. Sign them. Whatever price you think that's worth. I think across the board, you don't pay a third wide receiver over $10 million. Show me a team out there that does. Show me a single team out there that does. And if you need me to, I can go down and look at the other 31 teams and prove that nobody else does other than Reggie.
Okay. Listen, I'd rather, this is not one of these things that I want to be right about, because for me to be right, that means somebody got hurt and that we be talking about how we wish that we had signed somebody. So I don't want to be right on this. Maybe don't, but just because somebody don't do it doesn't mean that we shouldn't, right? We're trying to sit here and build this team and make a run over the next few years and put the pressure on the teams in our division and in our conference. And with these guys being older in age, and you don't need to sign them to a long-term deal, and you know that they're going to be better than everybody's third corner on the other side of the field, I'm not going to not do it just because he's our third wide receiver. These guys can all play.
I want my starting 22 to be better, and then I'll worry about the backups, about the third wide receiver and the third cornerback and the fourth defensive tackle at that point. I mean, look, Bosa signed for $12 million, right? 12.5. I would have had no problem. Give him 14. I know he had some injuries. Why aren't we giving him 14 or 15 for a year or two? Right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I think there's some free agents that I saw out there that signed big contracts, and there was somewhere like, man, why weren't we involved in that? I would like him at that cost, right? Would you have wanted?
Maybe it doesn't fit.
Would you want Bosa at $12.5 million?
I will go back. I will lean on to the thing that our guy John Keim says. He says this team is all about fit, not name. Joey Bosa is a name, doesn't mean he fits. And some of the people that you're talking about, they're names, but doesn't mean they fit. So fit, not name. So, I agree. So at the end of the day, if they didn't see it being a good fit, they've not given me any reason to question why they didn't sign the guy. And I will go back to the said, just because they didn't sign doesn't mean they didn't try. So for all I can say from this viewpoint, since I'm not in those negotiation discussions, it must not have been a good fit.
I think Reggie's giving him a pass. That's what you heard, ladies and gentlemen.
I am, because they've not given me a reason to question it or doubt it. So I'm not going to doubt it just for the sake of doubting it because they didn't sign the guy I thought they should, because they didn't make the move and bring in the guy I thought they should. Maybe that's interesting. I thought they would, but I don't watch film. I don't know I haven't talked to my buddy that's over in that organization where that guy was playing and found out what type of player he really is, what he's like in the locker room, what's his work ethic, and all the other things that comes into play. Does he play hurt? Does he play injured? Does the minute that he gets a little ache that he sits out and he can't play? I don't know any of those things. So the fact that they don't sign a guy, I'm not quick to say that, man, I would have done it on that deal. And maybe they tried. Or maybe there's something that they know that they realize he just won't be a good fit for our team. We'll let him go and be somewhere else.
And I don't disagree, right? Ultimately, they can trade every single draft pick away this year. And the new players come in, they play fantastic, and we're making a strong playoff run, and we can all look back and go, see, I told you so, right? This time of year, the moves that they make, whether it's through the draft or free agency, we'd like to talk about it, but the evidence doesn't happen until the fall. And whether it's you or I agreeing or disagreeing the way they go, when they get on the grass or artificial turf if you're playing indoors for Reggie. We're rooting for the burgundy and gold, right?
That's it. Let's go.
So, you got anything else on this? Anything you wanted to?
No.
I know. Real quick, are we a better team right now than we were at the end of when we lost to Philadelphia?
We're better offensively. We are probably about the same. Not much better defensively.
How would we be better defensively, considering we lost 2 starters?
I didn't say we were better. I said we're about the same.
Okay.
I don't
know that we are.
I don't think that we're worse. I don't know that we've improved. And even if you convince me that we improved, I don't think it's a slight improvement, and it's not enough improvement considering the schedule we're going to play next year.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that they're either going to get some bargain basement type last minute deals, or they're going to go heavily in the draft on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
a la what Philly did last year. Philly went heavy defense last year.
Yeah, I think how they sit right now, I mean, unless you have some stud offensive guy that falls to you at 29, I think they're definitely going to be looking strong at defense. And to your point, I think we are better off offensively. Debo and Tunsil, they're going to make an impact on this team. Both of them are going to make an impact on this team. Defensively, I think we've taken a step back, to be honest with you. Time will tell, how they fill in. But at the moment, if I had to, grade them out as a little bit better, a little bit worse, I would definitely say a little bit worse. I think we may end up missing Jeremy Chin more than we think. He was in on a lot of plays. You didn't see him getting burnt and out of position. Was it him? Was it the coaching? Time will tell, and see who we replace him with. But I'm interested. I think you and I would both agree right now we have a whole lot more concern of what we're doing on defense between now and opening day than what we're doing on offense. So.
Okay. And you think we're worse on defense because we lost Jeremy Chin?
And Allen. I didn't have a problem cutting Allen, but clearly other people.
If you didn't have a problem cutting the guy, then what?
I don't think his replacement doesn't do anything for me. He might not be as good as Allen.
That's fine, but you weren't getting anything out of John Allen.
Okay, if I give Allen a score from 1 to 10 and I give him a 5, he's getting paid like a 8, and so I cut him, and so we get another 5, we get another 4, and we lose Jeremy Chin.
So then you're not worse. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we're worse. I don't think we've improved, but I don't know that we're worse.
He was replaced with somebody that you don't even know what team he played on before you looked across at the rest of the thing.
We played games, and I didn't even know if John Allen was lined up on the field.
Fair enough.
He was suiting up every week, and I didn't know that he was playing. So I mean,
there's some other NFL teams out there that thought he was still valuable because they gave him a big contract. I'm not saying they're right, but
a lot of guys got big contract. Happens every year, and then
time will tell. Time will tell. But you got anything else, then?
I got nothing, man. I think we're gonna be fine, but I got nothing else, man.
I hope we're fine. Look, we're going to be fine. I don't like I said. We're not going to be a top 10 draft pick in 2026. Don't get me wrong, nothing like that. But I want to be better than next year. And right now, I don't know. I think time will tell. Time will tell.
We were all a little concerned going into the season last year. We lost week 1. We blah, 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 right? And then look how it turned out. Maybe we had one of the best years we had in a long time. So I understand your concern.
Then the burgundy and gold savior, he pulled the cape out from under his jersey and took off.
And he's somewhere in the lab right now getting better. So, hey, right? I understand we're all concerned right now.
He's upgrading his superpowers. Is that what you're saying?
That's it, baby. That's it. He's in the lab right now. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Knuckleheads, let us know what you think. Hit us up on Twitter. Throw your comments in on YouTube. Let us know what you think. Good, bad, indifferent. Any players that are still out there that might not be big name players that you think we should go get, let us know. Again, you can see us scrolling across there on Twitter. It's at DA2 Knuckleheads. Hit us up on Twitter and let us know. Till next time, peace out, Knuckleheads.
Peace out, y'all.